giving the community an opportunity to ask questions. And before we continue, I did want to acknowledge a number of people. I wanted to acknowledge our council members, so I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Crystal Hudson from the 35th District, Councilmember Rita Joseph from the 40th, Councilmember Darlene Mealy from the 41st. I also wanted to acknowledge Assemblymember Monique Chandler Waterman from the 58th District. I would also like to say thank you to the City Council Land Use Division. We have representation from them this evening, and they will provide some information for us as well. I also want to acknowledge Mr. George Janes. He's online right now, but he'll be joining us as well. Mr. Janes is an urban planner who often works with community boards on zoning issues. So for the charter revision, his office reviewed all of the proposed changes to the charter, translated them into plain language, and showed how they might be used on sites in Manhattan. I did want to take an opportunity. I didn't want to leave it to the end. I wanted to do it up front in terms of acknowledging the hard work of our Land Use Committee. I wanted to say thank you to members Cheryl Bernard, Nicola Cox, Max Davidson, Esteban Giron, Janice Granum, Hector Robertson, Benny Rosenberger, Joshua Thomas Serrano, Teresa Westerdahl, and ably led by their chair, Ms. Suki Chong. I also want to make sure we acknowledge, I know there was a small army of volunteers who helped out and they were handing flyers out around the district. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank at this time MS61 and the Department of Education for hosting us this evening. And I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge our district office team. Our district manager, Mr. Dante Arnwine, Ms. Mia Hilton, who was our assistant district manager, and Ms. Allison Henry, who is our community associate. With regards to just some very brief housekeeping items, we announced it earlier, but if you are here with us this evening, if you have questions, we're not going to be taking them from people, we're going to be taking them from index cards. So if there, at any time you wish to ask questions, we ask that you get an index card from one of the staff members. Write up to 2 questions. We understand that there might be a lot of them, but please prioritize those up to 2 questions. If we have an opportunity, if we're able to get through the agenda quickly enough, we'll try and take more, but up to 2 questions. Those index cards will be collected by the district office team during the town hall. Additionally, for those who are participating with us online, there is a Q&A function. So at the appropriate time, you can actually write your questions in there as well, and we'll take those questions as well during the presentation, during the Q&A section. With regards to that Q&A portion, because we need to be respectful of the time, those portions are timed, so we want to make sure that please don't make the questions too long. Don't make, lead up too much in terms of those. Make sure that they are brief and succinct. Lastly, I just wanted to say that we just wanted to set as the rule for the space that we are respectful. We understand that these are things that we're passionate about. We have a lot we want to hear. People have feelings already, and feelings may be developing, but we want to make sure that we're respectful of opinions that are may or may not be contrary to our own. All right, so at this time, I think we might be able to start. So what I would like to do at this time is introduce from the City Council Land Use Division, Mr. Brian Paul. And just to talk a little bit about the City Council Planning and Land Use Division, is a dedicated team of city planners, attorneys, administrative staff that support council members and the Land Use Committee. So this division helps the committee chairs conduct hearings and assists council members in performing analysis of uniform land use review procedure. Also, we usually say, commonly known as ULURP. So they will help them in terms of the analysis of those applications, working on community-based planning efforts, and undertaking broader studies of planning policy issues. Presenting tonight from the Council's Planning and Land Use Division is Deputy Director Brian Paul, who has worked at the Council since 2014. Mr. Paul, thank you so much, and we appreciate you speaking with us this evening.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and we are, again, going to talk about the questions that are going to appear on the other side of your ballot after you vote for mayor and the other offices. There's going to be a series of questions, and we're focusing on numbers 2, 3, and 4 here, and just going to try to give everyone more information on what is actually, you were being asked to vote yes or no on, because these commissions, they have to very succinctly summarize in a couple of sentences what they're asking you to vote on for it to fit on the ballot. And the way that that is often done is it elides a lot of what you are actually being able to asked to weigh in on. So you're going to see questions, and we'll get more in a minute, that say just very simple, things like fast-track affordable housing, yes or no? Simplify review of modest increases in housing, yes or no? And there may be, there are arguments to be made in favor of these, but if you are just seeing the very small sentences that are on the ballot, you're not getting the whole picture of what you're being asked to weigh in on. So I'm going to try to do this as simply as possible, but it is a bit detailed once you dig into these. So again, for those, just very quickly, zoning are the laws that set chiefly the size and what type of use, housing, stores, offices, a developer is allowed to build on a property. So whenever somebody wants to build something that is either significantly larger or a different use, I want to build offices, when I'm only allowed to build apartments, they have to go through a review process, environmental review, and then a process of some kind of approval on that change. Next slide, please. And since, 36 years now, since 1989, we've had pretty much the same system for that in New York City, known as Uniform Land Use Review Process, ULURP. You may have heard the term ULURP. And that procedure starts, it's about 5 to 7 months in total, starts at the community board for 60 days with a public hearing, and the community board has an opportunity to take a vote and make a recommendation. Yes, no, yes with conditions, no with conditions. These are the conditions that we'd like to see if we were to support this. This is why we don't support it. And then that report gets passed on to the borough president for 30 days. They have a hearing. They also do a report similar. Both the borough president and the community board do not, they're just advisory in this process. Though the community board voting no does not stop the application. So after that borough president stage, it then goes to the city planning commission, which is a body that's majority appointed by the mayor. It does have representatives from each borough president and the public advocate on it also, but it's majority mayor appointed. And the city planning commission, they also vote to approve, disapprove, or change it, but their vote if the city planning commission votes no, the project is done. And that rarely happens because projects without city planning commission support rarely start this process. So at that point, you get to the city council for 50 days at the last stage, and the council also has the power to approve, disapprove, or change the proposal. There's limits on what they can change, but they can make changes. But the city council right now has a lot of power at the end of this process as the city council disapproves. That's not like a community board disapproval where it's just advisory. The project does not go forward. So it was really, in this process right now, the city council often plays the role of taking up what the community board and the borough president recommended and really negotiating with the developer, with the city, to change the project in ways that are closer to what the community board or the borough president has been advocating for. And because the city council actually has that real power at the end, they have much more power to do that than if it was just advisory like it is in other processes. And again, this system, just looking at it in recent years, it is not, you really can't say it's something that's been blocking housing approval, because the city council has approved over 140,000 units. When people bring these applications forward, there's an estimate on how many apartments it'll create. So everything the city council has approved since 2022, it's over 140,000 in just 4 years. So city council is not anti-housing. All right, I'll try the angle. How about Testing, okay. So again, like I was saying, the council, I guess speak more into the top. No, I think it's good now. The council has that role of representing the community point of view in this process and negotiates for things like deeper affordability, more infrastructure investments, and things that are in the community board recommendations often. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. And here's a few recent examples of how that works at the end of the process. There was the large, 4 years ago, the Gowanus neighborhood plan rezoning in 2021, over 8,000 apartments. And you can see those going up, I'm sure you all have. And it was the council members' role in that process that pushed for many of the key benefits alongside that plan, including a lot of those new buildings are going to have dedicated spaces for arts and community facilities. And maybe the most key point of that negotiation was over $200 million to fully renovate the Gowanus and Wyckoff houses. Was committed at the end of that process, the NYC developments over there. And that's an example of something that I was here, would never have happened without the council's role in that process. Some examples from this year, the Western Rail Yards in Manhattan, which is the second half of the Hudson Yards. There was a proposal to apply for a casino license there, and when that needed some zoning changes. When that got to the council represented the community's point of view that they did not think a casino was appropriate there. So that was removed, and instead a proposal went forward that is going to increase the affordable housing on that site when it is built. And another example is the recent rezoning in Midtown, right near Penn Station. That was called MSMX. The council also negotiated that, and there was a package of resources for the garment district there, and the completion of turning Broadway into what's going to be this really innovative pedestrian park going forward. Hundreds of millions of dollars from the city to do those projects, and that was all negotiated at the end stage by the council, working from Manhattan Community Board 5, Manhattan Community Board 4, what they had submitted in ULURP. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, these are what we're going to talk about here is changes to this process for the first time since 1989 that are on the ballot as questions 2, 3, and 4. Number 2 is under the label Fast Tracking Affordable Housing, and there's 2 pieces to it. Number 3 is, you'll see titled as Simplify Review of Modest Proposals. And number 4 is the Affordable Housing Appeals Board. And next slide, please. Okay, so we'll go through each of those. There's basically 4 different changes you're being asked to vote on between questions 2, 3, and 4. Question 2 has 2 parts to it. They're both under the label Fast Track Affordable Housing. The first piece of that is a new procedure involving going to the BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals. I don't know how many of you know this body. It's a 5-person, all appointed by the mayor. And right now, what they usually deal with, if you ever heard the term variance, it's usually a smaller tweak to zoning. Somebody has a special kind of property, they have a hardship, they want to something that's different than zoning, but it's like a small change. They go to the Board of Standards and Appeals for a variance. This is creating a role for that board where people would be able to bring forth affordable proposals that are building subsidized affordable housing. So it's not necessarily the way it's written 100% affordable housing, but it's likely to be because that's usually what the city funds. Affordable housing projects in this process, it would go to the community board. Community board would get a presentation. They'd get to make comments, but then it would go right to this BSA, and that's it. Next slide, please. And so, I don't know if folks have experience with the BSA, but folks who have gone and testified at the BSA, submitted community board reports to the BSA, there often is an experience of not really being heard, because the BSA just is voting very narrowly on the technical merits of the application, and the BSA is not negotiating deeper affordability or investment in parks or things like that come along with a ULIRP. It's just very narrowly looking at the proposal. So there's much less accountability and neighborhood voice in the process like that. And this question also doesn't set any solid limits on the size of the building or whether it is really affordable or not. So sometimes things that are called affordable housing are actually pretty high income. Sometimes they're real. It's not always the case. Or sometimes they're pretty close to market rate. And this process the way this is written, it doesn't have guardrails so that theoretically a building, a very out of place building with rents over $3,000 a month could be called affordable and come through this. There could be good projects, but there's no guardrails on projects that really are very out of scale and not actually affordable. Okay, next, and then I'll go a little quicker through this one. There's another way to fast track that is being proposed. This one is not very unlikely to ever affect Central Brooklyn though, because this one is a special track for community boards, the 12 community boards in the city that build the least affordable housing. So, and this is framed as a fair housing solution. So it's not, I'll show you, there'll be a map in a minute showing where this would apply, but this is not ever likely to apply to Board 9, but for your awareness, this is the proposal. It would be community board, borough president merged into 168 period, then right to the City Planning Commission. Again, no city council review. Next slide, please. And this has, anything that drops the city council and just has a mayoral appointed body having the final word has the same issues to think about, where there's just less local representation in that process. And I'll go fast on this one. Yeah. Just to show you the geography. So every 5 years with this, they pick the 12 community boards who build the least affordable housing. The first selection would be next year, and it's likely to be the boards in red, but some of the ones in orange could swap in. But this is something that is only going to apply to community boards who build very little housing. So this is not going to apply. The closest places, maybe Board 18 is likely to apply, and Board 12, but not 8, 9, 16, 2, 3. Not Central Brooklyn. Okay. But through both of these processes, the common theme is that there's buildings that could be very out of scale, could become more common, and through these processes. Okay, and then there is question 3. Now this is more relevant to this community board. This is the one that is framed as a fast track for modest increases. But and the question does not tell you what modest increase means. A modest increase is actually, I think most people would find it pretty significant when I show you what it actually is. And this process is one that would cut council out of the process. So it would be a merged 60 days for the community board and the borough president to comment at once. Then it would go right to City Planning Commission. And that's it. And what are the criteria for this? If you're in a lower density district, like R2 or R5, anybody could come with an application to build 4-story apartments. Those districts, especially the R2, only allows single-family homes right now. R5 allows 4 stories in some cases, but usually more like 3. So this is bigger than what R5 otherwise allows. And then for this board, the most relevant thing is if you're in a medium or high density district, so R6 or R7, you can apply for a 30% increase through this, this process. And that means going from, and that's actually pretty significant, it's specific to this board. And I'll show you some examples next. Again, the concerns about this kind of fast track are, again, the CPC is controlled by the mayor, and that reduces, it just reduces that council role at the end of the process that I talked about. We'll just keep going, So this is just really quickly to show the zoning in this community board. So we have R2 district down here, between Lincoln Road and Fenimore, over by Bedford. That's also a historic district, so it has an extra layer of protection. And then we have low density up in the northern part between Eastern Parkway and Empire up here. And then we have these very large areas of R6. Basically the rest of the community board, other than those, are R6 or R7, which actually has, most of you probably see on the daily, allows pretty big buildings already. Next slide. And so when we have areas that are R6 that are mapped over small homes, that's already very big zoning, as you've seen, and this could get even bigger. So if I assemble a big property with an R6, and then I apply through this to go to R7-2, this is a building on Linden, this is what you can build on a big property with R7-2. So they say modest increase, but if your zoning has not been changed in 60 years and it's already too big for what people want, this is like a supersize on top of that. It could be much more than just modest. Next slide, please. And then in the low areas, this, 4-story apartments next to homes can happen, which is a lot of what's happening down in Board 17 already. So that was all question 3, which again on the ballot will say a modest fast track for modest change, and it's not. In some contexts it would be modest, but there's some cases where it would be anything but. And finally, question 4, the appeals board. So this applies to all applications that involve any kind of affordable housing. And what this does, it doesn't remove, it keeps that current ULURP process up until the end, where after the council, it would create this 3-vote panel, the mayor, the speaker, and the borough president, who could vote to overturn what the city council does. So if the city council voted no on something, that board could call it up, and the mayor and the borough president could overrule the council. Or if the council even, sometimes the council modifies, something comes in at 14 stories, the council hears the community's concern, the council makes it 11 stories, they could undo something like that also through this process. But what's maybe most concerning about it is just the way that it injects this element of unpredictability in the process, because you can kind of play the borough president and the council member off against each other, and neither one has the full negotiating power. So this just kind of puts more power in the hands of either, if it's the city applying the city, or if it's the developer applying the developer, because they don't have a clear negotiator to work with. They have the borough president and a council member, and it's just not clear. Sometimes that might work fine, sometimes that might be really chaotic, and the council thinks they have a negotiation, and it's upended at the last minute by something with this panel. Those kind of community investments and deeper affordability and things like that are usually happen through this process. It would be just more uncertain with this appeals board looming at the end. And just an example of, in the current system, having the council have a clear role at the end. This is in Community Board 8 this year. So Community Board 8 on Atlantic Avenue was seeing a lot of these one-off developer applications coming in, and they said, no, we don't want to do 10, 15 of these single developers coming in for approvals. We want the city to do a rezoning and put in the investments and redo Atlantic Avenue and do it the right way with infrastructure. And so that's what was happened over the last 3 years. And the council members heard that from Brooklyn Community Board 8, and they worked with the city to actually do this, and they represented these very clear goals that came from the community. We want more affordable housing. They found 6 sites to build 900 units of real affordable housing. And the community wanted Atlantic Avenue, in the future, in the coming 5 to 10 years, Atlantic Avenue is going to be redesigned with median and a much safer design. And that the money to fund that was negotiated. And so this was very clear priorities that came from the community board. The council members represented them, and that's what was secured. And if this appeals board exists, this just makes it more chaotic and confusing to get clear things done like that in a negotiation with the city. And just finally, again, the council is not against housing and has approved 140,000 units of housing in the last 4 years. And really, this speaker has been very supportive of those kind of neighborhood rezonings like Atlantic Avenue. And actually, the Furman Center looked at this from 2010 to 2020, and those types of plans are much more effective at building housing than the one-off developer applications. So that, we think that's, the city planning department should be given more resources, and we should be doing more neighborhood plans, those kind of neighborhood plans that add 5,000, 10,000 units with infrastructure, with affordable housing, with 2 or 3 years of community process, and these fast tracks for single buildings are questionable in comparison to that kind of process. So for more, the council has a website up with more information on these questions, and the community board is interested in getting this information out also. So with that, I will turn it back to the chair to moderate questions.
Mr. Ball, thank you so much for that presentation. All right, so first question, is this slide available to us as well, this presentation?
I think we can do that, yeah. There's multiple versions of presentations going around, but we'll get you one, yeah.
Okay, so just as a first, so if anybody missed it, if you didn't get the notes, we are going to try and get a copy of this as well, so we'll make it available, so that way you can get a copy of that. It will be in the e-blast per the district manager as well, so you'll have access to the slides if you weren't able to. I encourage everyone, if you know people who haven't seen this or you think may be interested, please share. Additionally, you see that you have our website there for Brooklyn Community Board 9. So any of these things, they'll go in the e-blast, but we also post these resources as well. All right, so listen, at this time, we are now going to go to the Q&A. So as we mentioned before, in terms of the housekeeping items, if you in the audience have a question, please, up to 2 questions on the index card, just raise it, and the district office staff will come and get it, and we're going to take questions right now. If you're online, if you're joining us online, please use the Q&A function to put up to 2 questions into the Q&A, and we're going to alternate between questions from the audience and questions online as well.
And we have cheese and crackers and water over here if anybody wants it. Help yourself, have a snack, have some water.
Thank you very much. All right, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our land use chair, Suki Chung. She's going to read some of the questions from the audience, and at which point, again, we'll alternate to questions from those viewers who are online.
Okay, first question, is there a requirement for developers to build a certain number of affordable units? If so, why do we need city council approval on top of community board approval? We need a faster process. And Brian, you can answer this question, and also George, if you want to weigh in, you can do that.
Okay, sure. So there are not clear guardrails in any of these proposals about how much and how deep the affordable housing has to be. Like I said, proposal 2, the question is not written in a way that is all low-income housing. 100% low-income housing goes to the BSA. It's not. That's just not the way. If you actually look at the law, that it's written with more flexibility. So, like I said, somebody could propose a development that is all at 100, 120 AMI through that process, which is $3,000 a month rents at this point. Those have inflated. Those AMIs have inflated so much. And same with the other questions that would fast track MIH. It's not. We don't know. There's different MIH options. This gets a little in the weeds for people, but basically there's an MIH option 1 that is deeper affordability, that is an average of 60 AMI, and there's an MIH option that is an average of 40 AMI also. And the city council often at the end of the ULURP ensures that one of those 2 will be on the development. And there's nothing in here. We don't know how the city planning commission, if the city planning commission is in charge of that, is how they will act, if they'll take into the same consideration for deeper affordability. They have not, they've always just left the higher AMI, MIH options on so far and left that to the council. So it really removes a guardrail when council members, if the community board is asking for deeper affordability, for the council to then enact that.
Suki, can I add on to that?
Sure. Go ahead, George.
All right, so one of the things that I had a big concern about is over EU-LURP, because EU-LURP is the process for smaller zoning changes, and it does not require MI, right? So you can have a smaller zoning change increasing housing density by 30% or less. It's going to not trigger any affordable housing. And in fact, my question is this, and maybe Brian has an opinion, is we just changed zoning to create something called the universal affordability preference, right? Which is this 20% bonus for housing that has 20% affordable housing. Why would developers do that if they can get 30% more housing and no affordability under EU-LURP? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know why they would, but I worry that these 2 efforts would work against each other.
What George was also pointing out is that the proposal 3 for the fast track for the modest increases, there's not a clear requirement for that to include any affordability at all. And one more back, this one. And so, especially these lower, where if somebody's applying to build the 4-story apartments in a 1 or 2 family area, there's no affordability on that at all. And then on the medium increases, usually there will be MIH applied in that, but we don't know what the MIH, again, it could be the 80% MIH option, where the 2-bedroom at 80 AMI is now $3,000 a month. So that's not affordable.
So no affordable required.
And if I can, because I got clarification from DCP on this, is that you need to go 40% or more to trigger MIH. And these are 30% or more. So that would mean that there would be no MIH applied in the higher density districts, unless it's an R10 going to an R11. In that case, there would be.
Could you repeat the question?
It's designed not to trigger MIH.
George is just pointing out also that the increases, it's not clear in what cases they will apply MIH or not. The law is not totally clear on what that increment is. So when somebody, again, is applying for that 30% increase, we've been told by folks at city planning that in most cases they will be applying MIH to this if this passes, but it's not clear, it's not in the law as a requirement.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in with a comment here. At this community board, when we had a hearing on the Spice Factory development, which many of you may remember, it was controversial because of the potential for shadows on the Botanic Gardens. And during the City Planning Commission hearings, we had a commissioner who asked if it was possible to do an upzoning of that area without the MIH requirement. And I think people were surprised because it hasn't been administration policy, but she asked, would it be allowed? And the answer is yes. It really is up to whoever is on the City Planning Commission, and whichever elected officials have the right to make that decision whether or not they would allow these big increases in big buildings without affordable housing. And so that's why it's so important who gets to make these decisions. Moving on to the next question. How are the appeals board reviews triggered? And I guess that is referring to proposal 4. Who has the right to request an appeal?
So I believe that it is either the applicant, so if it's a developer, the developer can request it, or the city, the mayor. I think one of the 3 members can also request it. I need to confirm on that one. I know that the city can, the mayor's side can call it up into that review. So I believe either the applicant or the mayor can call it up to that board.
Okay, let's go to an online question now. Let's see if there are any. Can anyone present the pluses of these proposed changes? Are there none?
Well, I would say there is a issue. I think probably the map for number 2 is the best way to show the pluses, because we do have community districts in the city that do not build their fair share of affordable housing in the current system. The city council passed legislation in 2023 that's going to kick in next year and have a target, affordable housing target for every community district. And that was the city council's approach to starting to solve this issue. That once that target is out there, it creates more of a policy imperative to build affordable housing in areas that have not been keeping up. But this is an issue that does need to be addressed. Again, this board does its fair share of housing and affordable housing, but there's just a lot of considerations to think about with the way these proposals have proposed to address this is very, very blunt and heavy-handed.
Just before, harkening back to our conversation before, the way the questions are worded, it's very simple in terms of, okay, well, these are efficiencies that go into the process. We are able to fast track affordable housing much faster, so you don't have to wait 7-8 months. You can get this done, lickety split, let the developer get to building. But it's about, you know, as the saying goes, the devil's in the details. And it's those details that I think Brian and George have been talking about in terms of what are we giving up in terms of negotiating power, in terms of, well, who's really carrying the burden for certain things as well. So I think that this has been a great conversation just for kind of highlighting that aspect of that.
So next question, there's kind of two related questions here. What does BSA stand for and what is its function? And what criteria does the BSA currently have and how would that change with the affordable fast track process?
Okay, that's back to proposal 2A, if you don't mind. And again, the BSA is the Board of Standards and Appeals. One more back? Yeah, that's it. And this is a board that exists now. It's 5 folks appointed by the mayor. And their role, a board like this exists in almost every city or town. It's legally called, it's like a relief valve for zoning relief. So if you have, for some reason, if you have like a weird triangle-shaped property, and you just like, you hire an architect, and they're like, we can't figure out how to fit a building on this undercurrent zoning. We need you to go to the BSA and request a variance to let you build a weird triangle-shaped building. That's kind of what the BSA does now mostly. It's weird circumstances where somebody needs a variation based on their individual circumstances. This is a totally different role for the BSA, where it's not based on that sort of thing. It's just the public benefit of affordable housing is justifying the relief from zoning. So this is a total, very new process role for the BSA in this, for affordable housing projects like this.
And so how does it differ from ULURP that you mentioned at the start when a developer wants to build something different than what they're allowed to build today?
Okay, this does, you would get a presentation at the community board, but that, you know, that is, and there's a hearing at the BSA, but there's no, you know, there was no borough president, there's no city council, and typically, you know, folks who have dealt with the BSA find that they often are not very responsive to community input, and they're just really narrowly focused on what the property owner is putting forward, and they don't look, again, they don't look at things the way that city elected, your local elected officials would, where they're hearing your feedback and saying, how do we make this building better for the community?
And George, if you have any comment, feel free to jump in as well.
Yeah, I'll just say I've appeared in front of the BSA a number of times, and I completely agree with what Brian said. The hearings are not the same as you would get in other places because it's a technical body, right? It's a technical body that have to meet certain findings for granting of variances, and because they have to make these technical findings, they're less responsive to softer input that they get from people who are testifying. They really care about the technical details, and so while they're set up to function quickly, meaning they're already there and they operate similarly, it's a much more rigid process than a typical planning process.
Thank you. The next question is, can we vote this down?
I'll take this one. No, the answer is absolutely. This is what this is all about in terms of, this is a question that is going before voters. This is going to be on the ballot. So really what we're trying to do is make sure you have the information so that we can vote intelligently and ask more questions if necessary as well. So absolutely you can vote against it. You can vote for it if you think that this is where you want to go. But the main idea is the choice is yours. You have the power to make a decision and let the government know how you feel about this.
Okay. Next one maybe is more of a comment. It's saying, so basically for ballots 2, 3, and 4, voting yes will give more rights to the mayor's office and his agencies, but voting no allows the community to have a voice through their ULURP, so their city council, who should follow the rules of member deference, can negotiate on the CB's behalf. Brian, I don't know if you want to
Sounds
comment
like
on
a
that.
reasonable summary. Yes, so the common theme of these questions is taking power away from the city council and giving it to mayor-appointed bodies. Yes.
Where do the borough presidents and city council stand on not being a part of the fast track proposals?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's unanimous among 51 council members, but the speaker and most members are clearly trying to raise awareness of the implications of these proposals, that they would reduce the council and therefore the community's role in the land use process.
And the community board as well, right?
What is the city planning to do about limited parking space on the street? I don't know if this is necessarily related, but possibly.
I would say, not directly, because, the availability, the control of the street is not zoning. It's not developers, it's DOT policy. But,
Although maybe parking can be something that council members negotiate for.
I was
as
gonna
part
say
of-
that. Sometimes council members, if they do hear that from the community, they do negotiate for parking to be included in a development. I have seen that before.
City council approved City of Yes. Why aren't they overseeing that each borough or community does their part?
So, again, there was legislation passed in November 2023 called the Fair Housing Framework that set for the first time, the city's going to be setting targets for each community district, how many affordable housing units, how many housing units, based on the city's need, based on the infrastructure in that community, based on how much that community has built over the last 10, 20 years. What's a reasonable number that every community district should build citywide in a fair share? That is not, you have to give time for the agencies to develop a policy like that, so that's not starting till next October 2026. But that was our strategy for how to create a more strategic housing plan to meet the city's needs. And the City of Yes, is the council significantly modified it, addressing many of the most egregious concerns that communities had. But that is an example of, some are portraying the council as this obstacle to housing in this process. But, if that were true, the council would not have passed City of Yes at all, if there was no concern for solving the city's housing crisis. The key thing here within these processes is trying to balance the citywide need with the local input. And if you totally take out the local input, you're only, the concern is you'll only have that citywide lens without without balancing it with the neighborhood's concerns.
And last question, we are in a housing crisis, and I believe we do need to fast track. Is there a timeline for how long this charter change will last, and can it be reversed?
So these would go into effect as soon as the election results are certified, if they pass. And this is the process for changing the city's charter. These commissions are called, the commissions develop proposals, and they put the proposals before the voters as referendum. So that, yes, that process, things can be changed if these pass and people really don't like the results, it could be changed in the future, yes. But through the same kind of process with Charter Revision Commission.
And actually, on related to the fast track issue, because that's been mentioned a couple of times, and this is also related to the last question I got, which is what is the longer part of the timeline, pre-certification or ULURP? Do these proposals reduce the pre-certification timeline? And I guess my question is just generally, how long does it take for a typical proposal, particularly an affordable housing proposal, from conception to somebody being able to move in? And what does it mean for us to be able to shave a month off of the ULURP timeline?
That's a good question, because a lot of the ballot language is speed ups, speed up approval, speed up. But I think even, all housing policy experts would admit that the main source of a long process is the 2 or 3 years of environmental review and city planning and DOT and DEP going back and forth on the application before it even starts. That lasts 2 to 3 years, typically. So,
And how long does construction even take usually?
Construction is also two years for a building, usually, at least. So, but really it's that a lot of the commentary I've seen is, New York takes 900 days to approve a housing development. But 800 of those days are before this starts. The current process starts. It's not, in terms of time, this is not, they're conflating multiple issues, and the city council is not the issue when it comes to speed at all.
If I could just add on to that, is that saving a month from the ULURP timeline is really trivial compared to how long it takes. I spent a lot of time working in East Harlem on the East Harlem neighborhood plan and the rezoning that happened there. That happened in 2017, and we're still seeing projects on city-owned sites that have been facilitated through that rezoning just starting now, right? It takes years for these projects to work its way through the systems. And, a lot of that's just the way that the process works in environmental review and financing and HPD and affordable housing. And so, saving a month in the ULURP timeline is just very surprising to hear, is that that's the solution for speeding things up. Very surprising.
So we'll now, if there are no more questions, we'll move on to allowing the elected officials to speak. I think I saw Andre Robinson online. Andre, would you care to address on behalf of Councilmember Hudson?
Give me 1 second. I've got.
And we'll do panelists. Although I don't know if I see him now. Andre, are you still with us? Is there anyone else from Councilmember Hudson's office? Okay. And we've also got Assemblymember Waterman here, if you'd like to address us.
Good night, everybody. We recognize the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Make sure you get an early check. Make sure, that's why I got all the pink on, and make sure that early detection is the best, and make sure we get access to resources. I am New York State Assembly Member Monique Chandler Waterman, covering Assembly District 58, which covers East Flatbush, parts of Canarsie, Brownsville, and Crown Heights. So I got this much of Community Board 9, but I'm here just like I have 100%. It doesn't matter how big or small, we want to make sure that you know that we are here and we represent. I want to thank to Community Board 9. I love all of y'all. Thank you from the streets. We'll be outside in the streets, from riding the bike and everywhere else. Thank you to the whole board. Thank you to the chair. Thank you to the district manager. Thank you to everybody that support this, organizing this very, very important conversation. We are focused on the love and hip hop of New York City mayor's race and everybody else's race, that this has been overlooked in a certain way. So I'm glad that you're doing this, and we're gonna do some more. Before I get into any of the things that I'm doing directly with the office, I just wanna say, I don't know if the city council member was able to speak about the ballot proposals, anybody from the city side? Because I'm on the state level. Yes, right? That's my girl right there. Yes, so I know that with all these proposals, there's a certain amount of there's always unintended consequences, right? So we want to speed up the process on one end, but then if we take out some of the layers of oversight, whether it's city council or community board, right? Because we have developments that go up, and I just really had one go up the application. We was talking about this the other day in CB9, and we didn't know about it, and the application went out. So there's two minds of thought here. We want to speed up with affordable housing, want to make sure all these things are happening quickly. But then if we miss certain process and oversight, how does the community get the information? Right? Because already we have all these different channels of city council and community board, and stuff is still slipping through the cracks, not because the city council don't want a community board, but the agencies are not notifying you. So when we do these proposals, we have to understand the unintended consequences. Things sounds nice. Let me look at the proposal. I wrote a whole bunch of notes. I had to study before I came here. When we fast-tracking affordable housing, I know city council is being removed from the process, so that could be a big problem. I know at the end is city planning that will have the say-so. Who's on the city planning committee? Who appoints them, right? Those are the things that I may have questions about, right? So it seemed like that's the final decision. So we have to make sure that we understand, and I know y'all went through that. There has one state proposal, number one, and it sounds good when you look at it, when they talk about recreational facilities, but this is in the Adirondack. Adirondack is where we get our pure water, we get fresh springs and all that, but that's not written here. So I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do a little bit of research. So I have to go to my state college, I have to go to the agencies, I have to go, because I went and visit, and I saw they had sacred land for Black and brown people. It's sacred ground there, and I think that's the only place that we get our fresh water, right? And that's pure water. So if we expand on it, I'm not sure how that impacts the other people coming in to contaminate or maybe deal with mess up with the water system. So that is not here, but we have to do more research, right? I don't know if y'all talked about that. I wasn't here earlier. So those are some of the things in the state. So with me, it's speaking to your city council member, ask them questions. There's a lot of groups. I know there's Democracy for NYC, right, with civic engagement. Even though they're with the mayor's team, right, they're under that, but they give information, right, that can be helpful. So we're gonna do a lot of informational seminars on this. I know a lot of your city council members and other electeds will be doing that, and just make sure that you are well informed in this process. Was that what I was speaking about today? Anything else? Okay. The other thing I would say, if I still have a little bit of time, is we gotta make sure we stay civically engaged, not only just in this process, but also ballot proposals. Yes, we need to make sure, I'm not saying yes to them, I'm just saying yes, we need to make sure that we look at them, right? Okay, let's make sure we get that clear. I didn't say yes to any of the proposals, because I still gotta do my research and I have questions. But we also gotta make sure that we vote for a person that best represents our interests in our community, right? So I always tell people I'm married for 24 years. I met my husband at 11 years old in junior high school, in my 11th junior high school. And if anybody's married or in a relationship with anybody, you don't get 100% of a person, right? You make it 80%, and then 20%, we gotta make them accountable, we gotta make sure they do this. We ain't marrying these people that we're trying to have run for office, right? I ain't trying to look for another husband. I'm just trying to look for somebody that has the most, some non-negotiables that I wanna make sure I have, that they with, and we good. But we tend to throw away the whole person because they ain't 100%. But we got a man sometimes that's 40%. We gonna go there. But I'm just saying, right? That we gotta make sure who has our best interest at heart. Don't matter their complexion, their color, their race, their religion, all that stuff. We gotta make sure we hold them accountable because it is our fault, because we put you there, we didn't hold you accountable. We saw you backsliding, we saw you losing your way, we didn't put you in that room and say, we ain't gonna vote for you if you don't do these things. So when you, whether it was Obama, whether it's president, mayor, whatever, you have to support the electeds, and it's not support means that you agree with everything they say. When they don't do something you don't like, don't only complain about it and come to their office, stand with them and say, I'm gonna show you how to get right. Right? Because we're not perfect, right? So I could take away my bias if I like somebody, don't like somebody, I'm not going to talk about that. But when someone falls as an elected, we suffer. Their failure is our failure, their success is our success. So I just want to make sure we stay civically engaged and don't be discouraged, right? Make sure you still have hope. Because if we do not, we give up on this process, we might as well not wake up in the morning. Once we can wake up in the morning, it's another day. We have a future with our kids, with our community, and we want to make sure that it's best for them. So we need to stay united. It doesn't matter if you have a little issue with somebody, you don't like somebody. Right now, we better all love each other up in here. Because you saw what came down today about the Attorney General, right? So there's a lot of hate going around, but we have to show love. Just for humanity, so we get through this, and that's by us being united and staying together, get informed. Now, some people may not be in these meetings, but you tell your neighbor when y'all talking about whatever's happening on TV or the soap opera. Make sure you tell them. But if you don't vote, if you don't do this, vote, because they're gonna call you and ask you who to vote for, and what ballot proposals they should be choosing and not choosing. So let's make sure that we get the information, we pass it on, and that we stay prayed up. We make sure we stay hopeful. And we make sure that we stay positive. Because when the mind is defeated and the heart is defeated, that's when we're physically defeated. But if they can't take this, they can't take that, they can't take anything from us in our community. So let's just make sure we stay encouraged. I do have some events, resources, because there's stuff still happening. There's still food programs happening, even though the federal government is doing what they're going to do. Just remember, we have an almighty person that's in charge that stands before any president, that stands before any mayor, whatever God you're serving, whatever your religious background is, there's somebody that's in charge that ain't a man, right? So we have a job fair coming up. We have food programs. There's a lot of different things that's happening to get food access. And the last thing, so for Halloween, I'll give it out to everybody. The last thing I'll say, I don't know if you've been watching the news, it was a police-involved shooting that happened in the 6-7. Let me tell you something. When someone gets shot, the first thing ain't gonna be like what they did. Somebody's son, somebody's father, somebody's family member was killed. And there's a trauma to the whole entire community, no matter what happened. So we're doing community healing responses to make sure that we put services and resources for those community members as they go through this trauma. We're asking for the body camera footage to be released. We're asking to make sure there's a full investigation, and we're asking for services and healing in our community. So with that, I'm New York State Assembly Member Monique Chandler Waterman. Even though I covered this much of Community Board 9, I'm here in full, okay? I love you, I appreciate you. And can you stand up, please? This is my Chief of Staff, Stephanie I need to get off and sit down. It's okay? It's okay if I stand up and talk a little bit more? And I just want to thank Community Board 9. Thank you so much. Shahid Faisal died years ago, and it was a trauma to the community, but y'all stand with us every year as we do Daniel's Day, and we do a mental health block party for those in the community, and they make sure I have this much of Community Board 9, but we do a big party every year of resources, and thank you so much for helping us and supporting us with that. And I'll pass it on to my Chief of Staff. Is that okay? Are you still with me? I ain't too boring? Okay.
So I don't want to take too much of your time. Of course, this is for ballot proposals, which is very important. However, I did not bring enough flyers for everyone. I only got half of the side, so I will be sending Suki and Dante the rest of the flyers so you guys can get it. What I really think is important is Utica and Crescent. There's an affordable housing that came up. The application was supposed to end the 31st of this month. They had not done enough outreach in your community. Your member made sure to force them to extend the application process. And because of that, we have an extended application process to December 31st. So what I'm asking you guys is please share this with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family members, because we want to make sure that we get a nice amount of our people who live in this district to apply for these apartments. And I just want to leave you with that. Thank you so much.
I got you. Thank you so much. So remember, thank you so much for coming and being present here with us and for everything you're doing. And even though you only have this much of CB9, you hold us down, 10 toes down all the time, and we appreciate you. All right, at this time, we'd also like to recognize, we have a representative from Councilmember Darlene Mealy's office as well, if you'd like to give words.
Hi, good night, guys. Ooh, yeah, I get what he was saying. I'm from Darlene Mealy's office, Councilmember Darlene Mealy's office. So if you guys want any opinions or anything else on anything, we have a town hall meeting coming up on October 23rd. It's gonna be happening at 225 Patchen Avenue. That's the excellent school for boys, Uncommon. It's gonna be going on from 6 p.m. to 8:30, okay? If any of you guys didn't get that, when it's finished, I'll give you the information all over. Also, over here on the table, we have 2 resource oath events coming up, okay? It's both events are gonna be on the same day, but at 2 different times in 2 different locations. So if you can't make it to one, you could make it to the other one. The oath resource event is gonna be for people that need help with summonses. Any that are issued by the Department of Sanitation, Buildings, Health, FDNY, and NYPD, but mostly the civil quality of life violations, okay? We'll be answering questions about them, explaining the hearing processes, helping you understand the summons itself, and also how to respond to it. If you guys already missed a date, we will help you respond to it and submit to get new defenses or new hearings, and even scheduling them, period. Okay? We also have a shredding event coming up on October 22nd. Give me 1 second. On October 22nd, we have a shredding event coming up. Please, documents only. I supplied and left a whole bunch of the flyers over there so you guys can know exactly where to come. Please come out, get rid of all those extra papers in the house. Also, every Tuesday, I know I tell you guys all the time, but every Tuesday we have a housing specialist inside of the office to help people sign up with housing, even if it's SNAP questions or even to apply for questions, he also assists with that. Every Monday, we have immigration lawyers that come out. I say this every time I come in, but it's very important. If you know somebody that needs help with immigration, we have 3 lawyers that come into the office on Mondays, every Monday. Only thing you have to do is call the office and make an appointment. Once you make the appointment, we'll get you in as soon as possible. They're getting in really fast, so they don't gotta be afraid. Just call in, okay? I wanna make sure I'm not missing out on anything. I basically covered it. That's it. What's your question, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Is the town hall going to be online, and is it also going to give out the ballots?
All of those questions can be answered at the town hall. Yes, definitely. And
Is it going to be on Zoom?
probably not on Zoom, but now that you say that, I will try to make that available. That's something I will go to the chief of staff and make available.
And it will be on the ballot proposal also?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you share that with Community Board 9 so that they will put it in their blast?
Definitely. I'll make sure that I share it with all the community boards, so, okay? So I'm glad that you asked that. So I would definitely get on that with the chief of staff and let her know that a lot of you guys want us to do a Zoom of the town hall. And that's only fair for the people that can't come out to the town hall meeting. So I definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much.
With the CB9, even though the stuff you're talking about.
Definitely. A lot of the resources you guys can find over there. And like you said, I'll pass everything along to them. Okay? I mainly cover this Community Board 9 So I just started, my name is Lisa, so I'll be at every meeting, okay? So I'm glad that you told me that, and any other things that you guys think, would help or better your communication with us, I always accept any type of, advice. Thank you. All right.
Sorry, being that we ran out of flyers today, we have a job fair October 21st at the Central Library at Grand Island Plaza from 10 to 2 on Tuesday, October 21st. And then we have a Harvest Festival coming up on October 25th at Patrick Park. It's not in this community board from 1 to 4, but we'll make sure we send that as well. We are having a meet and treat in front of our office on the 31st of the month for Halloween. And that's basically like a mobile office, get constituent services done, but also we'll make sure that we get candy. We have a Advance in My Future college vocational career and workforce. However you can advance your future. Everybody's not gonna go to college, right? Every child, and they want to probably get vocational trade skills or workforce fair. That'll be at Tilden campus on November 8th from 12 to 4. It's gonna probably be over 50 tabling with college jobs and vocational trades. So we could definitely sign up. Community Board 9, well, make sure I get that to y'all so y'all can share that as well. We also have housing Thursdays, and I'm gonna say one thing about the Utica Crescent that's actually in this community board. I know former assembly member, Diana Richardson fought hard for Vital Brooklyn with this, right? Yes, we gotta say that, right? There go my people right there. So, along with other, state electeds, but I'm just saying, I just heard her mouth talk about it all the time in the same room. Wasn't it in this room? I used to come to these meetings right here. Civic minded. That's why I do a vital voice. Thank you. So shout out to us, former Assembly Member Diana Richardson. This Utica Crescent, in relation to the proposal, I met with them, I talked about it with all the developers and everybody. Do not put this application out without telling us as elected officials, right? Guess what happened? The application went out without telling the elected officials. So my question with the proposal is, if we have all these things in place and stuff is still slipping through the cracks, if we remove certain oversight of certain people part of the process, because community board, you didn't know about this neither. When I was out from August, and we just found out about it like last week, right? So now with the proposal, because I was upset. She know, he know. I probably called you 1 o'clock in the morning about this when I found out, but that's the problem that it may come up with the proposals, because it should go to the elected officials, because some people come to the community board, but as elected officials, we're gonna blast it out. We have workshops on it, we make sure it gets to the people in the community. So we wanna make sure that when we pass proposals and taking out certain oversight or certain elected leadership, we gotta make sure that we're doing the right thing, because I don't know how that will look when we still have elected partners in this, and they're still not telling us the information. So what happens when we're not there, all right? So thank you so much. Thank you for the time. Let me give back the mic.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And again, I think that underscores a point that's been made this evening. There are already gaps in the process, as it is. So never mind if all of a sudden you're removing aspects of it as well. There are things to consider. So that's very important. All right, also just wanted to take an opportunity. We had a representative from...
Yeah, could we do a quick check if there are any representatives from other elected officials, offices in the room, Councilmember Joseph, Councilmember Hudson, or anybody online? Okay. So in that case, I think we have time to take a few more questions, if anybody, or comments, if anybody has any.
Okay, seeing none, I think we're going to conclude at this time. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. This is not, again, to tell you how to vote, but hopefully we've given you some information to think about. And hopefully if we've given you some information that you find useful, please pass it on. Share it with neighbors. Let's have these conversations. The one thing we don't want to happen is people don't vote. They vote in error, or they don't vote at all.
Before you leave, please sign in with the board office so that they have your information, so that you can get information about future meetings, projects that might be happening. so that you can get information about future meetings, projects that might be happening in your area, stay informed about what's going on in your community, sign up at the front with the board office so that you can be on their email list. You can also email infobk09@cb.nyc.gov. This presentation was recorded on Zoom. It'll be up on the board's website. So if you have neighbors who didn't get a chance to see this, they can watch it online afterwards. And you can also go to the website, whatsonmyballot.nyc. Again, as Assemblymember Waterman said, it's really important for you to pass the word to your neighbors.
I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but please do vote. I think we are concluded. Thank you, everyone. Again, we look forward to seeing you at other Community Board 9 events. We are adjourned.